In Konoha the opening game plays as Jikuni Yuanichi Chapter 626-650. Chapter 626. That day, Hitaki Kusuo and Sun Wukong set off to the Earth. The journey to the Earth was not easy. Seeing that Hitaki Kusuo was still frowning, Sun Wukong was curious. You said that it was so hard to save Chi-Chi, why are you still like this? Hitaki Nanshong took a look at Sun Wukong. Although he was good at martial arts, he was also smart. Who was Doctor Who? He had caused so many troubles before. How could it be really simple to save people so easily? So Hitaki Nanshong vaguely felt that there was something wrong with him. I don't know why, but I always feel that he is not that simple, so now I am also hesitant. Oh, don't hesitate, you know the final result. Anyway, I am not still with you, at most he can take my life. Seeing that he said it so easily, Hitaki Nanshong didn't say anything and patted his shoulder. With that said, Hitaki Nanshong went to the Earth. He saw a mostly blue planet from a distance. Hitaki Nanshong chose it and then used his magic power to land. It must be said that although the ecological environment on the Earth is not better than that of other planets, the technology and dynamics are more advanced than those of other planets. Although there are many places in this fairyland, if the ecology is destroyed, nature will always punish it. Hitaki Nanshong said silently in his heart, and Sun Wukong beside him was very curious about this place and kept jumping back and forth. Really, it's like I've never been here before. As soon as Hitaki Nanshong landed on the Earth, the fresh air hit his nose, but there was always some strange smell in it. Sun Wukong looked to the side and shouted. I didn't expect the Earth to be like this now. I remember when I came here before, there were only animals. Hitaki Nanshong nodded, but didn't pay attention to him. They still had things to do on Earth. Several people said this and acted so artificially. Looking at these creatures in front of them, they felt that many things had changed. Hitaki Nanshong started looking for the mysterious doctor as soon as he landed. The two had some conflicts before, so Hitaki Nanshong was actually wary of the mysterious doctor. Coming to Earth, it is neither his territory nor Doctor Who's territory, so Mineo Hitaki can rest assured about this. Chi-Chi is still seriously injured, and Mineo Hitaki has no intention to investigate these. After landing on Earth, he saw Doctor Who, and Mineo Hitaki still didn't look good to him. Can you do what you promised me? Doctor Who still had that playful smile, which made people want to slap him hard on his 42-yard face. Of course, I have already set up the machine here. There is no other way now, so he had to treat the dead horse as a living horse. Mineo Hitaki nodded and was still cautious. Who knows what this person will do next? If something goes wrong again, he can't guarantee that this Doctor Who will really be so kind. Young man, believe me, now I am the only one who can do it, isn't it? Mineo Hitaki snorted coldly. You'd better not act rashly, otherwise I won't let you go. Several people said this, and then walked out together. As several people stepped onto the spaceship carefully, what they didn't see was Doctor Who, with a strange smile on his face. Chapter 627. After entering the machine together, Nanshong Hitaki asked Doctor Who in a cold voice. We're here, where's Kiki? Why do you like that girl so much that you're willing to exchange your most precious things for her? Doctor Who still grinned. It seems that you two have a story. Not wanting to pay attention to his teasing, Nanshong Hitaki clenched his fists. If you don't let her go, we'll leave. Don't worry, look who that is. As he said that, Doctor Who clapped his hands, and Nanshong Hitaki only saw Kiki being pressed over. Finally saw Kiki. Kiki's face was full of fatigue and haggardness, and her face was even paler. Only when she saw Nanshong Hitaki did she smile a little. Doctor Who took her to Mineo Hitaki, who eagerly held his hand, seemingly rubbing it until only bones were left. Don't be nervous, we'll see each other soon. Doctor Who said with a smile, I really envy your relationship, it's still as good as ever. Mineo Hitaki snorted coldly, ignored her, and turned to look at Chi-Chi. What's going on? Did he bully you? Chi-Chi shook her head, but was curious about why they came. Why are you here? Sun Wukong said anxiously. It's like this, Doctor Who wants to use Mineo Hitaki's blood in exchange for you. Chi-Chi also knew how important Mineo Hitaki's blood was to him, so she naturally blamed herself for this. Why should I give it to him? Even if I die, I won't let him succeed. Hitaki Nanshong hugged her tightly. Don't say these things, as long as you are fine. Hitaki Nanshong swore that if there was anything, he would never let him go even if he had to dig 3 feet into the ground. Don't worry, I didn't hurt her. The mysterious doctor didn't care. After all, I will definitely be lenient with your woman. I am afraid that something will happen to her. I am more careful than those who protect me. Hitaki Nanshong swore that he really wanted to beat this smile that deserved to be beaten hard to calm the anger in his heart. I have never seen such a shameless person. Hitaki Nanshong almost wanted to beat him. This monkey was really simple-minded. The things he had been trying to hide were said to be particularly simple. 0 please flowers. Chi-Chi was deeply moved and looked up as if she couldn't bear it. Doctor Who clapped his hands beside him, as if to show his approval, and then walked over and said, How is it? I have done what I promised you, now you should fulfill your promise. Hitaki Nanshong took out the blood essence that had been prepared long ago, and then gave it to Doctor Who. Doctor Who looked at the blood essence in his hand, and the light in his eyes almost flashed. 0. That's great, I finally got it. Looking at his arrogant look, Hitaki Nanshong wanted to go up and kill him now. Although he was a little reluctant, there was no way. Between blood and Chi-Chi, he would definitely choose Chi-Chi. After all, there was only one teammate. Chi-Chi sighed. Do you think he will let you go if you give him the thing? Hitaki Nanshong did not feel surprised, and stood calmly in the same place. The two had fought so many times, and he had known this scene for a long time. I only heard Doctor Who laugh loudly, and then stood up and pressed the button in his hand. The whole floor moved. The machine that was just on the ground stood up instantly and turned into a robot. Work. Chapter 628. Sun Wukong spat on the ground. Bah, I knew you had bad intentions. He slammed the golden hoop on the ground and instantly turned into a Super Saiyan. The robot galloped, and the apprentice was shaken by him. Hitaki Nanshong helped Chi-Chi to the side and stared at the mysterious doctor vigilantly. You sit here first, I'll go to help. Chi-Chi said self-reproachfully. It's all my fault. If it weren't for me, you wouldn't have fallen into his trap. Hitaki Nanshong ignored him. Now was not the time to blame himself. They should think about how to get through this difficult time. Sun Wukong's Super Saiyan after transformation was much stronger than before, and his size was much larger. The two fought in close combat. Instantly, a layer of smoke appeared on the ground, and even the birds rushed to fly away because of their movements. But even so, Sun Wukong was alone, and the robot's transformation forms had already been divided into countless. Even if Sun Wukong defended the upper enemy, he failed to defend the lower step, and was taken advantage of by others. Sun Wukong fell to the ground and cursed fiercely. I don't believe it anymore. I really can't do anything to him. He said. He launched an attack again. Hitaki Nanshong knew that Sun Wukong was no match for him in such a strong attack. After all, he could still win if he fought one robot. With so many robots, he would be defeated if he was not careful. Before he finished thinking, he saw Sun Wukong immediately stepped back a few steps. He was beaten back. Dr. Mystery laughed beside him. Hitaki Nanshong, you didn't expect that you would be defeated by me even though you were smart for a while. Stop talking nonsense, I haven't lost yet. Sun Wukong got up again and joined the melee. For a while, the sound of the sky collapsing and the earth cracking disturbed the nearby animals to flee. Although Sun Wukong's final form was released, he was not stupid. It was impossible for him to fight against these robots alone. It used the terrain to make several robots go around in circles. Sun Wukong suddenly appeared on the side, and then hit the robot on the head with a stick, and the robot was instantly scrapped. With the encouragement of Sun Wukong, Hitaki Nanshong was naturally unwilling to fall behind. Doctor Who still had that evil smirk on his face, as if he was mocking Hitaki Nanshong. The next two of us are left, and it's time to fight 0. Hitaki Nanshong mocked him. Do you think you can compare with me just because you get the essence and blood? It's ridiculous. Hitaki Nanshong looked at him, and Doctor Who also stared at him. Somehow he admired the young man in front of him, but it was a pity that he couldn't receive him in his pen. Since he couldn't get him, he would destroy him. Doctor Who took the initiative to attack him, first in close combat, but suddenly he set his sights on Chi-Chi. I know I can't do anything to you, but that woman may not be the case. Hitaki Nanshong saw that his eyes suddenly locked on Kiki. Kiki was injured now. He also knew how much effort Hitaki Nanshong had put in to save Kiki this time, and naturally knew where his ability was. Hitaki Nanshong would not let him go so easily when he saw this. The two of them attacked again. Hitaki Nanshong attacked first, but when he knew that he was going to deal with Kiki, he directly attacked him. Hitaki Nanshong attacked one move after another, and each move was fatal, not giving him any chance at all, leave a little chance to live. The Doctor Who was beaten back again and again, but he showed an evil smile, as if he was planning something. Chapter 629. Every time he faced the Doctor Who, Hitaki Nanshong always had a headache, because he couldn't find his whereabouts, and he was always unpredictable. No matter from which point, he was at a loss, just like this time he targeted Chi-Chi. None of you can run out of here today. The Doctor Who was like crazy, pressing the button in his hand and looking at the scene in front of him. Chi-Chi also knew that today was probably the day she would die. Well, he was originally a useless person. Even if he died, as long as he didn't implicate others, he would be willing. But how could Hitaki Nanshong be willing? Sun Wukong also wanted to come to help at this time, but several robots pestered him, making Sun Wukong angry and cursing. Fuck! Let old 06 go. How could the group of robots understand what he said? They continued to pounce on Sun Wukong one after another. Even though Sun Wukong turned into a Super Saiyan, he was still strong and those robots were pressed to death. At this moment, Hitaki Nanshong seemed to be alone, his eyes were still tense. This man was still too scary. It was still frightening to see this scene. It's ridiculous. A dignified Hitaki Nanshong would be defeated by me one day. However, Hitaki Nanshong didn't say much. He should have expected this look before. After all, when he saw this scene, Hitaki Nanshong had imagined it several times in his mind, but he didn't expect that he couldn't protect them. Hitaki Nanshong was shocked. This damn man could even kill a woman. Didn't he agree not to hurt women in a fight? But this man actually used a woman as a shield. I only saw that the target was about to attack Chi-Chi, and Nanshong Hitaki quickly flew up and cast a spell to protect Chi-Chi. The robot's attack target was locked on Chi-Chi, and Nanshong Hitaki stepped forward to take the attack, but the next second. The mysterious doctor smiled evilly and said, "Hee hee, you fell into the trap." Before Nanshong Hitaki raised his head, he was suddenly hit in the back, hitting the heart. The mysterious doctor almost widened his eyes. Nanshong Hitaki, I want to see how you escape this time. Chi-Chi was thrown aside by Nanshong Hitaki, fell to the ground, and looked at Nanshong Hitaki worriedly. Nanshong Hitaki. If it was really because of him that so many people were injured, then what was the point of him living? It would be better to die with him. You are stupid, why do you have to do it for me? Chi-Chi was almost crying with worry. What he didn't want the most was that someone would be injured because of him, but in the current situation, it seemed that someone got into trouble because of her every day. Just like now. Chi-Chi shook her head in pain, lowered her head and buried her tears in her knees. What should he do? What should he do to protect everyone? He fell into pain, but the next second. Hitaki Nanshong stood up from the ruins, his face still calm. Not to mention the wounds on his body, not even a trace of blood could be seen. How could it be? The mysterious doctor was shocked and took 2 steps back. How could it be possible? All of this is my most satisfactory masterpiece. How could it not hurt you? Hitaki Nanshong's face was as cold as if he could eat him. Why can't it hurt me, and I can still stand here? Everything can only show that you are too stupid. Even seeing this scene, Chi-Chi was very surprised and didn't expect it at all. Chapter 630. Chi-Chi really didn't know that Duanmu Nanshong was so powerful. It happened that the fight was so tragic, and the wounds had healed in such a short time. It was really incredible. Doctor Who looked tense and shocked as he looked at Duanmu Nanshong in front of him. After hearing what he said, although he was a little scared, he was still full of anger. He widened his eyes and said, Duanmu Nanshong, what are you proud of? What can this prove? Well, are you still struggling to survive? What else can you do now? Duanmu Nanshong's anger seemed to burst out, and he asked contemptuously. Doctor Who's face turned from red to purple when he heard this, and then he remembered something, turned his head to look at the group of robots, and laughed again. Duanmu Nanshong, don't forget that I still have these robots. After saying this, Doctor Who looked at Duanmu Nanshong with some gloating, and said, what's more, your friend may be dead now. After you kill him, I will let my robot kill you diaresis. Kimu Nanshong looked at the doctor with stern eyes, and then looked at the layers of robots that kept pressing on Sun Wukong. Because there were too many robots, he couldn't see the situation inside clearly, and didn't know what state Sun Wukong was in. Without hesitation, and without talking nonsense with the doctor, he stood up and ran to Sun Wukong. Ah! Ha ha! Here comes old Sun! Bang! Sun Wukong roared, flew to the sky with golden light, and then waved his golden hoop to smash the robots on the ground. Even the robots had become golden and shining, and they were particularly powerful. Crackle! Hundreds of robots flew to the sky one after another, and then fell to the ground, in pieces, unable to be pieced together into a whole robot. In just a moment, all the robots turned into scraps of copper and iron all over the ground. No! Don't! My robots! Don't! Doctor Who knelt on the ground, screaming in despair, crawling bit by bit on the ground, holding up the wreckage of the robots on the ground with both hands. No! This is all my hard work. No! Doctor Who held the robot fragments in his palms. Only Sun Wukong was seen, with the golden hoop on his back, his clothes were a little damaged, and he was caught by the robot piece by piece, in a mess, with varying degrees of injuries on his face and body. But at this moment, he was full of loneliness and rebellion. Sun Wukong transformed into a Super Saiyan, the third stage state, and stood up and flew to Chi Mu Nanshong's side with a handsome somersault cloud. Brother monkey. Are you okay? Chi Mu Nanshong asked with a worried look on his face, and then looked up and down at Sun Wukong's body with anxious eyes. I'm fine. How about you guys? You just... For Sun Wukong, these are just a few minor things, not worth mentioning. On the contrary, Chi Mu Nanshong. Just now he had already. Jiao Hao, but now he is standing here intact. Sun Wukong is really surprised. I'm fine. Monkey brother, don't worry. Chi Mu Nanshong looked at Sun Wukong with wounds all over his body, but ignored himself and came to care about him, and his heart was warm. It's good that it's fine, we'll talk about it later. Now solve this mysterious doctor, and go back and talk slowly. Sun Wukong patted Chi Mu Nanshong on the shoulder, and then looked at the mysterious doctor with a sinister look. Chapter 631. The power of the Rasengan in Sun Wukong's body exploded, and looking at Sun Wukong in such a state, the mysterious doctor was also frightened. If the Buddha gives me 1 foot, I will respect him 1 foot. If the devil suppresses me 1 meter, I will suppress the devil by 1,000 meters. Sun Wukong raised the golden hoop in his hand and smashed it on Doctor Who's head. Doctor Who retreated several steps and staggered. Let Chi-Chi go. I'll say it again for the last time. Otherwise, don't blame me for being rude today and smashing you into pieces. Sun Wukong scolded. The strength of the golden hoop in his hand increased a lot. All along the way, it was because of Doctor Who's obstruction that everyone's plan was delayed. Now, Sun Wukong didn't want to ask for anything else, just hoped to leave here safely with his companions. He didn't want to have too many fights with Doctor Who, after all, the two of them were not from the same world. Doctor Who laughed. He was not scared. Sun Wukong was really powerful in this form. But if I let go so easily, once the news spreads, wouldn't it make people laugh? Asshole, I really give you face, do you want to save your partner from me? Then let me see how capable you are. The doctor waved the weapon in his hand and smashed it towards Sun Wukong. Seeing Sun Wukong like this, the doctor thought he was a little funny. I am a knowledgeable doctor after all. I don't know how many things he has created in the field of science. He dared to compete with me with his traditional Chinese body. You are simply looking for death. I clearly thought of leaving you a way out. Sun Wukong couldn't bear it anymore, so he simply used the power in his body to wave wildly towards the doctor. Sun Wukong was always on top, and Seiki Kusuo didn't intervene too much. The Rasengan spell that Sun Wukong practiced a few days ago was also learned from him. Seiki Kusuo wanted to see who was better between the two. Boy, you really think of yourself as a human being, don't you? Facing my step-by-step concessions, you don't know how to restrain yourself, but you are still strengthening your attacks here. Doctor Who mocked. With a crisp sound, Doctor Who's form changed immediately. At this moment, Doctor Who instantly transformed into a half-machine, half-Saiyan form. This. Sun Wukong frowned and subconsciously looked towards Seiki Kusuo. He didn't expect Doctor Who's mutation to be so amazing. Now, he has only mastered the same transformation technique. Stinky boy, it's time to let you see how powerful I am. My nickname of Doctor Who is not for nothing. If I lose to a young boy like you today, how incompetent I will be. Doctor Who also used the power of Rasengan to resist Sun Wukong. Today he wants to let Sun Wukong taste how it feels to shoot himself in the foot. Sun Wukong shook his head and tried to wake himself up. The short-term mutation was just normal, and he looked a little surprised. Come on, I never thought of returning safely after meeting you. If I don't kill you, I'm afraid I will let Chi-Chi down in the future. Sun Wukong suddenly jumped up from the air and smashed towards Doctor Who. At this moment, Doctor Who was covered with armor, and he knocked Sun Wukong back 100 meters with a raised hand. Chapter 632. Doctor Who's moves were vicious. Seeing that Sun Wukong was suppressed by him, Doctor Who didn't intend to let go, and simply punched Sun Wukong in the chest. At this moment, Sun Wukong had long lost his resistance consciousness. Without any guard, Sun Wukong was knocked away for a long distance. Sliding quickly in the air, Sun Wukong felt his mind was blank, and simply closed his eyes. He was ready to be beaten by Doctor Who just when Sun Wukong thought he was about to hit the reef and die. Seiki Kusuo suddenly appeared and took Sun Wukong down. Smelly boy, wake up, the battle is not over yet. What are you doing? Are you going to give up so soon? Seiki Kusuo slapped Sun Wukong's cheek hard, trying to wake him up. On weekdays, Sun Wukong was always warlike, but today Sun Wukong seemed to have been hit, and now he was like a deflated ball, without any motivation. The pain on his face came, and Sun Wukong woke up. He opened his eyes and found that he had been sent to the ground by Seiki Kusuo. Seeing that the doctor was still coming towards him, Sun Wukong tried to lift the golden hoop in his hand, but he had no strength now. The chakra had been used up just now, and he had to recuperate for a while if he wanted to accumulate energy again. Chi-Mu Kusuo, I'm sorry, I also want to fight him again, but I really don't have the ability now. I'm afraid I'll hurt you this time. Sun Wukong looked at Chi-Mu Kusuo with great guilt. I thought it was easy for him to defeat Doctor Who. I never expected that Doctor Who's mutation would be so severe. Under the protection of the semi-machine, no matter how much force Sun Wukong's golden hoop put, Doctor Who had no reaction, as if his hammer was just like scratching an itch. Bad boy, watch me, it's my turn to perform next. How can we let this bad guy escape like this? Chi-Mu Kusuo placed Sun Wukong in a relatively safe place, and then rushed up to fight Doctor Who. Seeing the arrival of Chi-Mu Kusuo, Doctor Who smiled disdainfully. Sun Wukong had been knocked down by himself. What kind of ability could this person have? Ask for flowers. Stinky boy, I advise you to take this unlucky thing away before I get angry, otherwise I will beat both of you into a pulp. The doctor threatened. At present, all the things made by his men have exploded. The doctor just wants to leave here quickly and does not want to entangle with the two on Earth for too long. Seeing Seiki Kusuo rushing over again, the doctor felt that this person was a bit stupid. Faced with such a dangerous situation, he still rushed over without hesitation. This is like a moth flying into a flame. What is the difference between self-destruction? Then let me see how capable you are. Don't be a giant in words and a dwarf in actions. Take my punch. Seiki Kusuo did not waste words and punched him directly. The doctor thought he had enough strength, but he was hit hard. Who knew that the force of this punch was much greater than that of Sun Wukong's stick? Doctor Who staggered several steps after being hit. Chimyu Kusuo took advantage of the victory and hit 2 more punches. Under the effect of 3 punches, Doctor Who was directly beaten back to his previous form. Work. Chapter 633. Doctor Who lay on the ground gasping for breath. He never expected that the man in front of him had such great power. On this earth, Sun Wukong is already a powerful man, but I didn't expect that there is someone who is better than Sun Wukong. Old man, now you have seen how powerful I am. I told you to be stubborn. If I don't teach you a lesson today, I, Chimyu Kusuo, will not be a human being. Chimyu Kusuo punched again. Doctor Who knew that he was no match for this man, so he hurriedly got up and ran away. As the saying goes, running away is the best strategy among the 36 strategies. At this moment, he couldn't fight head-on, so he might as well evacuate quickly. As long as the Green Mountains are there will be no shortage of firewood. It will be in time to come back for revenge in the future. Chimyu Kusuo, don't let him run away, chase him quickly. This man has done many evil things. If we let him go today, I'm afraid he will come back in the future and cause great harm to our earth. Sun Wukong was extremely anxious and shouted hurriedly. He also wanted to catch up himself, but he was seriously injured and couldn't control the somersault cloud at all. Boy, don't worry, I know what I do. You have to take good care of yourself next. I'm going to deal with this bad guy. Chimyu Kusuo said this and quickly chased after him. Doctor Who has been running in front. Seeing Chimyu Kusuo chasing him relentlessly, Doctor Who suddenly smiled. He had expected that the two would join hands to deal with him. So he set up an ambush on the planet early. Before, he was worried that he couldn't trick Chimyu Kusuo to come here, but he didn't expect this guy to be so reckless. Under the stimulation, he rushed towards me without hesitation. It was time to let Seiki Kusuo have a taste of pain. Old man, you are very powerful, why are you just running away now? You want to be a deserter, but you look so miserable. Seiki Kusuo said sarcastically from behind. The doctor has been running around in front. Seiki Kusuo tried his best to catch up, but it seemed a bit difficult. After all, there was a long distance between the two. You two are outnumbered and win unfairly. You really think you are so great, right? If you have the ability, come and chase me. I want to see if you can catch me. Doctor Who patted his buttocks, pretending to be very arrogant. He swayed back and forth in front of Seiki Kusuo. When Seiki Kusuo sped up, he also quickly ran to the surrounding planets. Now I am the only one present. If you feel dissatisfied, you can stop and fight me. I will show you how powerful I, Seiki Kusuo, am. Seiki Kusuo was not polite and directly retorted. Faced with such a provocation from Doctor Who, Seiki Kusuo just felt that it was really irritating. Doctor Who has done many evil things on Earth, and Seiki Kusuo thinks it's time to put an end to it. Seiki Kusuo doesn't want to let this person go to other planets to harm other creatures. Wait until you catch up with me, and then there will be plenty of opportunities for a one-on-one fight. If you can't even catch up with me, what's the point of saying these? After all, it's meaningless. Doctor Who ran forward quickly. While Seiki Kusuo didn't react, he quickly disappeared in the air. Seiki Kusuo stopped and went to a nearby planet to carefully check the hiding place of Doctor Who. On this planet, Doctor Who had set up an ambush early. Chapter 634. Seiki Kusuo looked around very vigilantly, fearing that Doctor Who would rush out to attack. He shouted loudly to the front, "Aren't we going to duel? Why are you hiding like a turtle? Come out and fight me." Doctor Who was hiding behind the trees, looked at Seiki Kusuo who was still looking for his figure. He smiled and said to himself, "Seiki Kusuo, we should make a break, but I will deal with you." Doctor Who looked at the super soldiers he had arranged in the dark, and then looked at Seiki Kusuo not far away. He waved his hand, and a group of super soldiers rushed to Seiki Kusuo from all places in an instant, and soon surrounded Seiki Kusuo. Seiki Kusuo looked at the many super soldiers around him, and he realized that this was arranged by Doctor Who from the beginning, and he deliberately led himself here. Doctor Who also came out from behind the trees on the side. He pointed to the super soldiers surrounding Seiki Kusuo and said to him with a smile, "How about this gift I carefully arranged for you, do you like it?" He gritted his teeth in anger, and he said word by word, "I really didn't expect that Doctor Who couldn't beat people and called for support. It's really embarrassing. Yes, it's my fault that I overestimated you." Doctor Who said nonchalantly, "You can be crazy, but you won't be able to be crazy later. Soldiers, go. Defeat him." The group of super soldiers moved closer to Seiki Kusuo, and the encirclement shrank a lot in an instant. At this time, Hitaki Kusuo in the encirclement felt something was wrong. He felt the breath of Saiyans, but there were only super soldiers around him and no Saiyans. He stared at the mysterious doctor in front of him and asked, "What's going on? Why do I feel the breath of Saiyans nearby? Doctor Who, is it you who did it again?" The doctor was a little surprised to hear his words, and then smiled and said, "There are no Saiyans here. Aren't the people standing in front of you all super soldiers?" Seiki Kusuo did not give up and asked again, "Then why did I feel the breath of Saiyans?" Doctor Who touched his chin with his hand and said to him, "Seiki Kusuo, your sense is really strong. If you can be on the same front with me, how can you fall to this point now? Since you are about to disappear, I will tell you reluctantly, there are indeed no Saiyans around here. As for the Saiyan aura you feel, it is just emitted from the super soldier in front of you." Chimyu Kusuo said puzzledly, "This is impossible. Why would a super soldier have a Saiyan aura?" Doctor Who raised his head and laughed. "Under my hands, nothing is impossible. I just diluted the Saiyan blood and injected it into the bodies of these super soldiers. But I didn't expect that you could detect the diluted blood. You are really powerful, but you have to die here today. Since I have told you everything you want to know, you can die clearly." Chimyu Kusuo asked in shock, "Doctor Who, what are you going to do?" Why did the doctor repeat it again? Of course, he wants to destroy you. Soldiers, self-destruct and let Seiki Kusuo die with you. Then he used the powerful genetic weapon. Chapter 635. Seiki Kusuo saw the doctor in front of him about to activate the genetic weapon, and he wanted to rush over to stop him. But he was surrounded by super soldiers and couldn't get out at all, and these super soldiers had received the order to self-destruct and were about to self-destruct. Faced with this dilemma, Seiki Kusuo couldn't help but regret it. If he hadn't been so impulsive, he wouldn't have fallen into Doctor Who's ambush. He looked at the super soldier in front of him who was about to explode, and he suddenly jumped out of the encirclement. As the super soldiers were about to explode, they lost their ability to move for a short time. Chimyu Kusuo looked at the motionless super soldier behind him, patted his chest, and exhaled heavily. The super soldier behind him exploded before he took a few steps. He looked at Doctor Who in front of him who seemed to want to turn around and take a look. He quickly rushed to hide behind a tree close to him. Doctor Who heard the sound of the super soldier's self-detonation and turned around to see that there was no sign of Seiki Kusuo behind him. He laughed for a long time and then said, "Seiki Kusuo, this is what happens when you go against me." After that, he turned around and walked forward again. Seiki Kusuo poked his head out from behind the tree and looked at Doctor Who in front of him and the gene weapon that was about to be launched. He shouted and rushed over. Doctor Who didn't seem to react for a while. Seiki Kusuo ran past him and soon arrived in front of the gene weapon. He destroyed the gene weapon in one move. At this time, Doctor Who came to his senses. He looked at Seiki Kusuo who had already arrived in front of the gene weapon and shouted, "No!" But it was too late. The gene weapon had been destroyed by Seiki Kusuo. Doctor Who thought to himself, since the super soldier's self-detonation can't solve him, and the gene weapon has been destroyed by him, then there is no chance of winning if I stay here. After thinking this, Doctor Who took a few steps back and wanted to escape. But his every move was observed by Seiki Kusuo. Seeing that Doctor Who had the intention to escape, Seiki Kusuo rushed over and pressed Doctor Who to the ground. Doctor Who had not taken a few steps when he was pressed to the ground by Seiki Kusuo. There was a lot of dirt on his face, but he didn't mind. He said with difficulty, Seiki Kusuo, let me go first, we have something to talk about. Don't you want to duel with me properly? Okay, I promise you. After hearing what Doctor Who said, Seiki Kusuo, who was pressing him, smiled and said, "Do you still need a duel? Haven't you been pressed to the ground by me? And you called so many super soldiers and used genetic weapons but still couldn't defeat me, right? The fact is in front of you, you can't beat me." Just when Seiki Kusuo was about to give Doctor Who the final blow, Doctor Who under him suddenly began to change. Scared, Seiki Kusuo quickly jumped up from Doctor Who. He stood aside and watched the changes in Doctor Who's body with some confusion. After a while, Doctor Who turned into a Super Saiyan. He looked at Seiki Kusuo provocatively and said, "Seiki Kusuo, since you don't listen to me when I talk to you nicely, then go and die." Seiki Kusuo was surprised to see that Doctor Who could turn into a Super Saiyan, but he didn't show it on his face. He slowly said, "Doctor Who, is this your last trump card?" Chapter 636. After becoming a Super Saiyan, Doctor Who's strength naturally increased, which also gave Doctor Who strong confidence. He laughed wantonly when he saw Seiki Kusuo. "If I want to run, you can't stop me. With your strength, you'd better run quickly. Otherwise, when I regret it, you will be the one who dies." After his strength skyrocketed, Doctor Who didn't take Seiki Kusuo seriously at all. But for Seiki Kusuo, he overestimated his own strength. In fact, for Seiki Kusuo, it was not a big deal for Doctor Who to use his trump card to become a Super Saiyan. Because with Seiki Kusuo's current strength, he can still easily deal with Doctor Who. It's too early for Doctor Who to be happy. But facing Doctor Who, the Doctor's words were like a provocation. Normally, Seiki Kusuo did not respond or refute what the Doctor said. Instead, he kept fighting with the Doctor. Gradually, the Doctor found himself. Although he could fight with Seiki Kusuo, he had no way to defeat him. And if he continued like this, his physical strength would be consumed and he would probably lose to Seiki Kusuo. Although he has become a Super Saiyan now, it is only temporary. If he changes back, he will be restrained by Seiki Kusuo again. Thinking of this, the Doctor changed his mind. Because he originally planned to kill Seiki Kusuo, but it is obviously not possible to do so now. "You are lucky. I will let you go this time. You won't be so lucky next time I meet you. You should hide from me next time." Doctor Who said this fiercely, and then left quickly without waiting for any response from Seiki Kusuo. After leaving, Doctor Who still felt a little incredible. After all, with Seiki Kusuo's strength, it is not impossible to catch him if he catches up. But Seiki Kusuo gradually stopped catching up. It seems that Seiki Kusuo's strength is just like this. I thought he was so powerful. I must kill him next time I see him. Thinking of Doctor Who in his heart, he was a little disdainful of Seiki Kusuo, but he didn't know that Seiki Kusuo actually let Doctor Who go on purpose. Seiki Kusuo had the ability to kill Doctor Who directly when he was fighting with Doctor Who just now. But Seiki Kusuo didn't. Because Doctor Who has other uses for Seiki Kusuo, it would be too unworthy to kill Doctor Who so early. It seems that the second plan can be implemented now. Run quickly, run back to your nest, and let me find you by the way. Seiki Kusuo said this, watching Doctor Who gradually walk away. The figure was far away, and then he slowly chased after him. Chimyu Kusuo was not worried at all that he would be left behind by Doctor Who at this speed. Because Chimyu Kusuo had already prepared. Just when fighting with Doctor Who, Chimyu Kusuo had already left a mark on Doctor Who. Now Chimyu Kusuo only needed to rely on the mark just left to track the direction where Doctor Who went. No need to think, if Doctor Who leaves now, he will definitely return to his laboratory. Chapter 637. Chimyu Kusuo wanted more than just Doctor Who's life. He also wanted Doctor Who's laboratory and the things in the laboratory. But now there is no rush for all this. Since the mark has been left on Doctor Who, this one mark can quickly take him to Doctor Who. It's ridiculous that Doctor Who actually thought he had the advantage in strength and then slipped away. He didn't expect Chimyu Kusuo to deliberately let him go. After letting Doctor Who go, Seiki Kusuo reunited with Sun Wukong and others. Seeing Seiki Kusuo come back safe and sound, Sun Wukong's people were relieved. After all, everyone was worried whether Seiki Kusuo would encounter any danger when he went out alone. Don't worry, it's just Doctor Who, I don't care about him. Seiki Kusuo said nonchalantly. Thinking of his relaxed look when he just accepted the challenge, Seiki Kusuo was even less worried. No matter how powerful the things Doctor Who researched were, they were just vulnerable in front of him. After everyone met, they exchanged information and talked about what they had just encountered and what they had done. At this time, Chi-Chi suddenly screamed, and everyone immediately focused their attention on Chi-Chi. This sight also surprised everyone. Because right in front of them, Chi-Chi suddenly had strange black runes on her body. It is unknown what these black runes mean. Even Seiki Kusuo finds them strange. They seem to have some kind of evil power. What's going on? Why do these things appear on my body? What's wrong with Chi-Chi? How can I get rid of these black runes? Oh my god, what do these black runes represent? What harm is there? No matter what, we have to find a way first. Everyone was panicked when they saw this. Because after Chi-Chi had strange black runes on her body, her face turned pale. The bloodless face was full of panic and pain. I feel my vitality is gradually draining away. Something is draining my life. Zero, please give me flowers. Chi-Chi felt the changes in her body and said weakly. Seiki Kusuo was observing the strange black runes that suddenly appeared on Kiki's body. After observing for a while, Seiki Kusuo understood what it was. I understand. This should be the backup left by Doctor Who. This statement immediately made the people around him wonder if Doctor Who could have developed such an evil thing. You know, once such a rune is printed on a person's body, it will directly take a person's life. 0. And we don't know if it will have any other effects. Now seeing Kiki's weak appearance, everyone wants to kill Doctor Who immediately. What should we do? Do we have any solution now? We can't go on like this. If we continue, Chi-Chi will die. This thing was developed by Doctor Who. Doctor Who should have a solution. Even if he has a solution now, it's too late. Chi-Chi's vitality is fading too fast. If he continues like this, he will die. Gong. Chapter 638. We don't know where Doctor Who is now. Everyone looked at Chi-Chi's current appearance and felt confused and desperate. Chi-Chi is their teammate, and no one wants to see their teammate die like this. If you want to solve this problem, it should be impossible. Just kill Doctor Who. Just when everyone was anxiously thinking of a solution, Seiki Kusuo said these words. And Seiki Kusuo's words immediately made everyone feel like they had found their backbone. That's right. Since this was done by Doctor Who, if we kill Doctor Who, will his power no longer be able to hurt Chi-Chi? Even if killing him doesn't work, we can still find a solution from Doctor Who. There must be a solution. Just when talking about this matter, everyone thought of a problem that could not be solved. Then how can we find Doctor Who now? He didn't leave any traces when he left just now. This made everyone silent again. Don't worry about this. I have a way. I left a mark on Doctor Who just now. Now, as long as we follow him, we can find Doctor Who right away. Seiki Kusuo, you are our savior. Fortunately, you kept a trick, otherwise we wouldn't know what to do now. Yes, if that's the case, let's find Doctor Who quickly. Chi-Chi is getting weaker and weaker now, and we can't delay any longer. Chi-Mu Kusuo nodded, and then he started to drive the chakra with all his strength. After using the chakra, according to the mark on the doctor, Chi-Mu Kusuo immediately determined the doctor's current location. I didn't expect that in such a short time, the doctor had gone so far. If it was really at a normal speed, it would take a lot of time. But for Chi-Mu Kusuo, this was not a big problem. After determining the location of the doctor, Chi-Mu Kusuo immediately used the Flying Thunder God technique. At the moment when Chi-Mu Kusuo used the Flying Thunder God technique, Chi-Mu Kusuo had already appeared in front of the Dr. Zero. At this time, the doctor was so proud of himself because he escaped Chi-Mu Kusuo's pursuit so easily. He sat in his seat and drank tea leisurely. It's just a small role, but you really think you are a big shot. If I want to escape, is there anyone who can catch up with me? This sentence was said with great pride. Just after this sentence was finished, Doctor Who was surprised and his face changed drastically, because he suddenly found that Seiki Kusuo appeared in front of him. When he saw Seiki Kusuo just now, he thought it was his illusion, but obviously the facts told him that it was not the case. After Seiki Kusuo came in front of him, he walked towards her step by step. How did you appear here? Just now, after Doctor Who came back, he confirmed again and again that there was no one around, which meant that Seiki Kusuo had been lost when he was tracking him. But how could Seiki Kusuo find this place now? And he appeared directly in his laboratory. Chapter 639. In shock, Doctor Who forgot what to do when facing Seiki Kusuo. It was only when Seiki Kusuo attacked first that Doctor Who reacted. That's right, Seiki Kusuo didn't even think about answering Doctor Who's question. Even if Doctor Who asked it now, what would happen? Seiki Kusuo didn't have so much time to answer this question. Because Seiki Kusuo was in a hurry to save Kiki's life, if it drags on, Chi-Chi may be in danger. So it is impossible for Seiki Kusuo to talk nonsense with Doctor Who here. This leaves Doctor Who with an unanswerable question. This situation of having a question but not being able to answer it really makes Doctor Who feel very uncomfortable. But he also knows that now is not the time to understand this matter, and he must respond to Seiki Kusuo quickly. After all, with his current appearance, he is no match for Seiki Kusuo. Only when he becomes a Super Saiyan can he have the strength to fight Seiki Kusuo. It seems that I have no choice but to become a Super Saiyan and teach you a lesson. You dare to fall into the trap. You really don't know how to live or die. Doctor Who was still very confident about his strength after becoming a Super Saiyan. So before he turned into a Super Saiyan, Doctor Who made some harsh remarks. But Doctor Who had no idea that he seemed to be evenly matched with Seiki Kusuo before. It was just an illusion given to him by Seiki Kusuo. If Seiki Kusuo really tried his best, he would never be Seiki Kusuo's opponent. Doctor Who discovered this very quickly after he turned into a Super Saiyan. Because after turning into a Super Saiyan, Doctor Who felt that the gap in strength between him and Seiki Kusuo was too big, or Seiki Kusuo suddenly became quite powerful. How did you become so strong? In surprise, Doctor Who couldn't help but say this. Why are you a villain with your IQ? I must have hidden my strength before. Do you still think you can beat me? As he said this, Seiki Kusuo directly attacked Doctor Who. This made Doctor Who unable to comfort himself. Because he could also feel that Seiki Kusuo's strength suddenly skyrocketed. If this is the case, it is not appropriate to be too radical. If it is too radical, Seiki Kusuo will be defeated directly. The best way now is to fight with Seiki Kusuo and then take the opportunity to escape. Then Doctor Who distanced himself from Seiki Kusuo, trying to use this distance to create a chance for himself to escape. But Seiki Kusuo would not give Doctor Who such an opportunity. After discovering Doctor Who's intention, Seiki Kusuo came directly behind Doctor Who. It looks like you want to escape again. Where do you want to run this time? I even found your nest. Seiki Kusuo suddenly appeared behind him. After that, Doctor Who was shocked. But he also knew that he couldn't escape now, because Seiki Kusuo's teleportation was too strong. And at the moment when Doctor Who was desperate, Seiki Kusuo directly hit him hard and knocked him to the ground. This time, Doctor Who couldn't fight back. Chapter 640. At this moment, Seiki Kusuo looked at the scene in front of him, and he used his sealing technique without hesitation. He sealed all the power of Doctor Who and looked at Doctor Who at this moment. Seiki Kusuo spoke condescendingly. Hand over the antidote in your body. There was only a cold tone in Seiki Kusuo's tone, but when Doctor Who heard this, it was like hearing a big joke. He held his stomach and looked at Seiki Kusuo and said without hesitation. It's impossible to hand over the antidote, just give up. Seeing the look of Doctor Who, there was only a lot of complexity in Seiki Kusuo's eyes. He clenched his fists and looked at him and couldn't help saying. You are very brave, but I want to see if your life is as brave as your courage. Seiki Kusuo's tone was full of excitement. Looking at Doctor Who, he suddenly used the energy in his hand. Doctor Who saw him like that, and he was so scared that he trembled all over. He stared at Seiki Kusuo with a face full of panic and said, "What do you want to do? Don't do anything stupid." Doctor Who said this while retreating. Seiki Kusuo saw that he was scared, but there was only disdain on his face, because he had been sealed by himself now, all his power. So he had no room to struggle at all, and Seiki Kusuo stared at him, his eyes flashing with melancholy. "Don't be afraid, you should die peacefully at this time." While Seiki Kusuo was speaking, he smiled at Doctor Who. It was precisely because of Seiki Kusuo's words that Doctor Who's face became extremely ugly. He clenched his fists and looked at Seiki Kusuo, and couldn't help but yelled. "Why do you have to kill us all? After all, we are from the same roots, why are we so anxious to fight each other?" This guy said anything in a hurry, and Seiki Kusuo just spit when he heard it. "Don't merge yourself with me. People like you don't deserve to be involved with me." The seriousness on Seiki Kusuo's face was not fake. Under helplessness, Doctor Who could only grit his teeth. Seeing Doctor Who's look, Seiki Kusuo spoke again. "If you have any opinions about me, just say it directly. You don't have to pretend to be pitiful like now." When Seiki Kusuo said this, Doctor Who's face became extremely ugly. And Seiki Kusuo was too lazy to continue to argue with him, and spoke directly. "All I want is the antidote, you can take it out and I will let you go immediately." He pointed out all this, and at the same time stared at Doctor Who, his face flashing with excitement. Doctor Who had no choice but to nod. At this moment, Doctor Who threw out the antidote, and seeing the tube of antidote appear in front of him, his face showed excitement. When Doctor Who saw Seiki Kusuo's look, his eyes were full of weirdness. He wondered in his heart, what qualifications did Seiki Kusuo have to negotiate with him here? The more he thought about it, the uglier his face became. He clenched his fists and couldn't help but curse Seiki Kusuo. But he endured it because he knew that other changes would happen next. But Seiki Kusuo didn't go over to pick it up, but stared at Doctor Who and suddenly said, "Don't say I didn't warn you. If you dare to have those crooked thoughts, I will never forgive you." Chapter 641. Chimu Kusuo's words were so clear that Doctor Who could only nod. But there was a hint of pain on his face. "You will regret doing this." When Doctor Who said these words, his face was full of seriousness. He looked at the gaze in Chimu Kusuo's eyes, as if he was persuading a lost lamb. "Don't be my enemy, you won't get any benefit from it." Every word he said made Chimu Kusuo feel ridiculous. Chimu Kusuo stared at Doctor Who and refuted without hesitation. "This thing has nothing to do with you. Besides, being with people like you is equivalent to seeking death." While Seiki Kusuo was getting the antidote, Doctor Who took advantage of this opportunity to directly launch his secret technique. It seemed that he was ready to leave here. Doctor Who had a bit of excitement on his face. He thought he could escape smoothly, but he didn't expect that Seiki Kusuo still caught him sharply, and his secret technique was broken by Seiki Kusuo in an instant. Seiki Kusuo stared at him, his eyes full of weirdness, and then spoke. "I really don't understand you more and more. You obviously have a way to live in front of you, but you don't cherish it and must seek death. In this case, don't blame me for being rude to you." Seiki Kusuo said while sighing softly. At this time, Seiki Kusuo looked at Doctor Who and attacked him regardless of anything. Because of Seiki Kusuo, the energy in Doctor Who's body was sealed, and now he became a fish on the board. In addition to letting Seiki Kusuo slaughter the meat, there is no other way, but Doctor Who looked at Seiki Kusuo with unwillingness in his eyes. He gritted his teeth and said to Seiki Kusuo, "If you don't want to die, you'd better." He stopped talking here, but Seiki Kusuo found it very funny. He stared at Doctor Who and couldn't help but retort, "You'd better figure out who is waiting to die now, and don't put everything on others." Seiki Kusuo said this slowly, and Doctor Who felt even more uncomfortable when he heard it. The more Seiki Kusuo said this, the uglier Doctor Who looked. Under helplessness, he could only bite the bullet and say, "Let me go now, and I will definitely let you go at this moment in the future." As Doctor Who said this, he forced a smile at Seiki Kusuo, but his smile was equivalent to making fun of Seiki Kusuo. Do you think this is possible? Will I agree to it? Chimyu Kusuo's question made Doctor Who look ashamed, and at this time, Chimyu Kusuo attacked without hesitation. Even if this guy knew the secret technique and sealed it, the energy in his body might allow him to find other ways to escape. It would be better to just seriously injure him. Thinking of this, Chimyu Kusuo attacked without hesitation. Doctor Who fell to the ground, and Chimyu Kusuo found it very funny to see Doctor Who's embarrassed look. He stared at Doctor Who and said condescendingly, "Hurry up and stand up and fight with me, don't be a dead man anymore." The contempt in Chimyu Kusuo's tone was not fake, and Doctor Who almost vomited blood when he heard it. He clenched his fists and looked up at Chimyu Kusuo, his eyes full of anger. Chapter 642. The more Chimyu Kusuo did this, the uglier Doctor Who looked. For a long time, Doctor Who fell into a long silence and finally did not say a word. Maybe because he was seriously injured, he couldn't even fart now. Chimyu Kusuo looked at him and found it very funny. But when Chimyu Kusuo took the antidote in his hand, he suddenly realized that he was actually on a deserted planet. Chimyu Kusuo's face became a little ugly. He walked around the planet and couldn't find a way to leave. He frowned, as if he didn't know how to solve the problem in front of him. Looking back at Doctor Who behind him, Chimyu Kusuo said without hesitation, "Do you know where this place is? How to leave?" But he didn't expect this guy to pretend to be a salted fish, roll his eyes, and don't want to answer anything. He looks like he's dead. Chimyu Kusuo frowned and stared at Doctor Who, his eyes full of impatience. He clenched his fists and wanted to criticize Doctor Who. But he didn't expect this guy to spit out a mouthful of blood because of his serious injuries. Seeing his miserable appearance, Seiki Kusuo hurriedly retreated and did not harass him again. When Doctor Who saw Seiki Kusuo's appearance, he just clenched his fists and said angrily, "Even if I become a ghost, I will not let you go." Seiki Kusuo just smiled when he heard it, and looked at Doctor Who, rolling his eyes impatiently, not taking his words seriously at all. And Seiki Kusuo took the antidote and walked around the planet again and again, but he still did not find a real way to leave. His face became increasingly ugly. If he did not go back now, he could even imagine what kind of chaos Sun Wukong and Chi-Chi would be in. Seiki Kusuo's mood became particularly depressed. After thinking about it, Seiki Kusuo suddenly remembered the Flying Thunder God seal that he still left with Sun Wukong. Excitement appeared on his face, and he decisively used this seal to return directly to Sun Wukong. A stream of light flashed by, and Seiki Kusuo only felt the wind on his cheek, brushing past quickly. When Seiki Kusuo appeared in front of Sun Wukong, this guy was still holding Chi-Chi, and his face was full of grief. "Zero, please give flowers." Who told Chi-Chi to be poisoned? It was normal for Sun Wukong to be sad, and Seiki Kusuo walked over. Sun Wukong turned around and saw Seiki Kusuo appear in front of him. His eyes widened in disbelief, and he looked at Seiki Kusuo and cried, "If you don't come back, you'll be dead." Sun Wukong said this while covering his chest. "Zero." Seeing his appearance, Seiki Kusuo couldn't help but smile, and decisively handed over the antidote. Sun Wukong took the antidote, his eyes full of gratitude. Thanks to Seiki Kusuo's willingness to go to that place to get the antidote back, otherwise, they must be staying here now, not knowing how to solve the problem. Thinking of this, Sun Wukong's mood became particularly complicated. Looking at Seiki Kusuo, even if he had thousands of words to say, he finally chose to shut up. Holding the tube of antidote, Sun Wukong held it carefully in his hand. This is the antidote that can wake up Chi-Chi. But at this time, Sun Wukong also hurriedly gave Chi-Chi the antidote. Sun Wukong looked at Chi-Chi, his eyes full of worry, tears rippling in his eyes. Work. Chapter 643. Will he not wake up? Sun Wukong said this while looking at Seiki Kusuo, his face was full of worry. Seiki Kusuo heard what Sun Wukong said, but did not respond to him. He was recovering his chakra, and as for what Sun Wukong was saying there, Seiki Kusuo did not listen at all. At this time, Sun Wukong saw that Seiki Kusuo ignored him, and put his eyes back on Chi-Chi. He looked at Chichi-083 and couldn't help but speak. Don't be in trouble. If you are in trouble, what do you want me to do? While Sun Wukong said this, he covered his face and looked very uncomfortable. Seeing him like that, Seiki Kusuo couldn't bear it. He came over and patted Sun Wukong on the shoulder. Originally, he was going to comfort him a few words, but unexpectedly, Sun Wukong started crying directly. Seeing Sun Wukong crying like that, Seiki Kusuo's face also showed a bit of weirdness. He stared at Sun Wukong and spoke. Okay, stop crying. His problem is not serious. It has been eliminated now. This antidote is real. Seiki Kusuo said this directly. He really couldn't stand the way Sun Wukong kept crying beside him. Sun Wukong heard Seiki Kusuo's words and looked at Chi-Chi again. He found that the black curse mark on his body really disappeared. Sun Wukong laughed all of a sudden, but Seiki Kusuo stared at him and shook his head helplessly. This guy was like a child. If there was a problem with this antidote, Seiki Kusuo could find Dr. Hu and ask him to hand over the correct one. Since he was already seriously injured, he was seriously injured again and again, and the second time was not a problem at all. Thinking of this, Seiki Kusuo's face showed excitement. At this time, Chi-Chi still didn't wake up. Seiki Kusuo was not anxious, but took other people to the space warehouse. Seiki Kusuo had a bit of worry on his face. Looking at the spaceship in front of him, Seiki Kusuo covered his chest and didn't speak for a long time. But Sun Wukong couldn't help but talk. He hasn't woken up yet. Is there something wrong? Sun Wukong's face was still a little sad. While he was saying this, he also pulled Seiki Kusuo's arm. He tried to ask Seiki Kusuo to help him see what was wrong with Chi-Chi. But Seiki Kusuo was not a doctor, how could he see it? Seeing that Sun Wukong was still depressed, Seiki Kusuo couldn't say anything else to comfort him. He could only pat Sun Wukong on the shoulder and said, "Be patient and wait a while. Now he has taken the antidote. There won't be any big problems." Seiki Kusuo could only try his best to comfort Sun Wukong. Sun Wukong nodded with a depressed look when he heard these words from Seiki Kusuo. Sun Wukong was still holding Chi-Chi at this moment, and his face was full of heartache. Seeing the two of them, Seiki Kusuo felt a little sorry. This happened too suddenly. It would be hard for anyone else to accept it, let alone Sun Wukong and Chi-Chi. But at this time, Seiki Kusuo suddenly found that Doctor Who was actually on a planet called Pandora. Seiki Kusuo frowned, his face full of weirdness. A weird look flashed across Seiki Kusuo's face. Unexpectedly, Sun Wukong suddenly exclaimed at this time. He looked at Chi-Chi with excitement in his eyes. Seiki Kusuo looked back and realized that it was because Chi-Chi woke up that Sun Wukong was particularly happy. Chapter 644. Seeing Sun Wukong cheering, Seiki Kusuo couldn't help shaking his head and patting Sun Wukong on the shoulder and said, "We still have to find Doctor Who first. He is currently on Pandora." After Seiki Kusuo said this, Sun Wukong nodded decisively. At this time, Chi-Chi, looking at the people in front of him, he couldn't help laughing. He was glad that he didn't die. Chi-Chi hugged Sun Wukong, and the two of them cried. At this time, Seiki Kusuo led them to the space warehouse and boarded the special spaceship. There was a bit of excitement on Seiki Kusuo's face, and Sun Wukong just looked at 06 Seiki Kusuo and asked anxiously, "Is this place your territory?" While Sun Wukong said this, he walked around inside, his face was full of curiosity. Every time he saw a new thing, Sun Wukong couldn't help but go over to take a look. Seiki Kusuo saw Sun Wukong's look, but he didn't hate it. He just silently introduced everything here to Sun Wukong. Sun Wukong nodded while listening, and then raised his thumbs up, his face full of joy. All this can be said to be extremely cool for Sun Wukong. At this time, Seiki Kusuo took the initiative to come to the cockpit, and he looked at the vast sea of stars in front of him. Then, the operator of the cockpit began to lead everyone to Pandora. Seiki Kusuo's face was a little weird. He didn't know what the doctor was doing there. However, the starry sky in front of him made Seiki Kusuo temporarily relax himself in the highly suppressed tension. At this moment, Seiki Kusuo finally got a chance to breathe. With a little happiness on his face, when he turned around to look at Sun Wukong and Chi-Chi, the two of them were sitting in the restaurant, eating happily. Maybe because of death resurrection, so they cherish each other especially. Seiki Kusuo looked at these pictures and showed warmth on his face. Perhaps, after losing, everyone knows to cherish. Seiki Kusuo saw Sun Wukong's tender face. I couldn't help but think of Sun Wukong's future fate. I just hope that Sun Wukong will never encounter all that. After all, Sun Wukong still looks so simple. Seiki Kusuo was looking forward to it in his heart. Sun Wukong noticed Seiki Kusuo's attention and waved to him hurriedly, looking at Seiki Kusuo and said happily, "Come over and eat together." Hearing Sun Wukong's words, Seiki Kusuo nodded and walked over. He couldn't stay there and watch the two of them. As Seiki Kusuo walked over, he also started the automatic driving. At the moment when the automatic driving was turned on, Seiki Kusuo sat down next to Sun Wukong. Sun Wukong was very happy to share with Seiki Kusuo the things he thought were delicious. Even though he had just experienced the separation of life and death, Sun Wukong was able to adjust quickly now. Chi-Chi was beside Sun Wukong, chatting and laughing with him. Both of them had some excitement on their faces. "This thing is really good, try it quickly," Sun Wukong said while pushing the thing in front of him to Seiki Kusuo. Seiki Kusuo nodded, looked at Sun Wukong, and couldn't help saying, "What will you do when you meet Doctor Who later?" Chapter 645. After Seiki Kusuo asked the question, Sun Wukong's face flashed with complexity. He frowned and said thoughtfully, "I will definitely tear him into pieces. I won't let this scum live." Sun Wukong's face was full of seriousness, and he clenched his fists. He didn't look like he was joking. Who asked Doctor Who to hurt Chi-Chi? Such a thing is absolutely unacceptable to him, which is equivalent to hurting his bottom line. Sun Wukong was angry, and he couldn't help but say while looking at Seiki Kusuo, "Can you teach me how to defeat Doctor Who? I want to be as good as you." Seiki Kusuo looked at him, and saw the expectation and expression in his eyes, but his face showed a bit of helplessness. Talent is something that cannot be taught, and Seiki Kusuo has talent. Looking at Sun Wukong, Seiki Kusuo didn't speak for a long time. At this moment, Chi-Chi just patted Sun Wukong on the shoulder and said, "Just practice your basic skills well. If you don't even do these things well, how can you defeat Doctor Who?" Chi-Chi's tone was full of rigor. When these words came out, Seiki Kusuo also nodded. Looking at Sun Wukong, Seiki Kusuo's eyes were full of seriousness. "To be honest, you must grasp your own shortcomings well, including your basic skills, and you must improve them well." Seimu Kusuo kept telling Sun Wukong like an elder, although he knew in his heart that these words were a bit long-winded for Sun Wukong. Sun Wukong might not be able to listen, but it was precisely because all of this was useful to Sun Wukong that Sun Wukong needed to keep it in mind. Seeing the expression on Seimu Kusuo's face, Sun Wukong nodded decisively, but at this time Sun Wukong put down the dinner in his hand. He had eaten and drunk enough. He turned around on the spaceship and found that there was no place for him to practice. He also showed a bit of melancholy on his face. He thought he could seize this opportunity to improve his strength, but he didn't expect to miss the last chance. But he didn't expect to run into the captain. Sun Wukong looked at the captain in front of him, couldn't help but widen his eyes, and then asked, "Do you know what happened to Pandora?" Sun Wukong said, looking at the French window, the scenery outside, everything looks so shocking. But it is within reach, as if it can be grasped by just touching it. Unfortunately, with his current strength, these are still too far away for him. Thinking of this, Sun Wukong looked gloomy again and retracted his gaze. While Sun Wukong was distracted by this, the captain also told him about Pandora. This is a small private planet. Although there are not many materials and energy on it, at least the scenery of this planet is still good. But good money is that everyone at this moment also encountered that planet. Sun Wukong looked at Pandora outside the French window, his eyes flashing with a sharpness. He knew that Doctor Who was on it. If he wanted to avenge Chi-Chi, he had to get rid of Sun Wukong. Otherwise, the bad breath in his heart would be hard to get rid of. At this moment, Seiki Kusuo suddenly came over. Looking at the Pandora planet in front of them, they just happened to make a space jump and arrived at other places. Chapter 646. The special spaceship started a new jump according to the space fluctuation. After a long space jump, they finally arrived at Pandora. But they stayed in the sky all the time. Sun Wukong was very anxious about this. Looking at the captain, he kept urging him. Hurry up and land. We have arrived here. Why are you still here? Sun Wukong's tone was full of urgency. The captain frowned with a headache when he heard his words, looked at Sun Wukong, and couldn't help but speak. Wait a moment, I'll operate it for a while. After the captain said this, Sun Wukong had no objection, he stood by and waited patiently. But time passed by, and Sun Wukong was anxious waiting here, thinking that Doctor Who was on Pandora. He wanted to avenge Chi-Chi, but he couldn't seize this opportunity at this moment, which gave him a headache. Sun Wukong sighed softly while speaking. When can we land? We have been hovering in the sky for so long, don't we have a chance to go down? Sun Wukong's face was full of annoyance. He couldn't help but want to curse at the captain. What the captain did really made Sun Wukong feel irritated. He was questioning whether the captain could really fly a spaceship. If he could, how could he make such a low-level mistake? Thinking like this, Sun Wukong's mood also became particularly melancholy. Sun Wukong looked at the captain and thought in his heart that if he could land the spaceship, he could still restrain his temper. But if he couldn't land the spaceship, then all his politeness would be a fart. Thinking of this, Sun Wukong kept urging him, and the captain was still operating the cockpit in front of him. There was a point in the procedure that he couldn't figure out, that is, his spaceship had been hovering in the sky, and it was difficult to enter the planet anyway. Logically speaking, this situation should not happen. The captain was feeling a headache for this. Seiki Kusuo looked at him and couldn't help but say. Still haven't found any other way. After Seiki Kusuo asked the question, the captain hurriedly shook his head. I think it should be found soon. He didn't want to be questioned by Seiki Kusuo, but when Seiki Kusuo saw the captain's look, he couldn't help but chuckle and said. It will be found soon. Why are you showing off here? You obviously don't have the strength. Get out of the way and let me take a look. Seiki Kusuo said very seriously. When he said this, the captain's face became very ugly. He frowned and said with a complicated expression. This is definitely not a problem with my operation, but this spaceship is really not that easy to control. The captain's face was a bit serious, and he seemed to be justifying his behavior and trying to make it all reasonable. It's a pity that when Seiki Kusuo heard it, his face didn't show much ripples. He operated it a few times and only then found out. It turned out that because there was a protective barrier on the surface of Pandora, their special spaceships were stopped. It's no wonder that the captain had been operating here just now without any clues. Seiki Kusuo thought about it and didn't continue to blame him, but said this matter. When he said it, the captain had no opinion. Chapter 647. Perhaps because they tried their best to enter Pandora, they accidentally triggered the security system inside. Sun Wukong and Seiki Kusuo were discussing solutions there, while the captain continued to operate the spacecraft, preparing to lead them in through other methods. This barrier may be able to be entered using a pass, and the captain was so confused that he wanted to forge a fake pass. Using a fake pass to enter this place may solve their current problems. Thinking of this, the captain couldn't help but want to laugh. He thought he was so smart that he could think of such an idea. Before he had time to be happy, the captain started to operate. He clenched his fists, and his face was full of seriousness. But at this moment, Seiki Kusuo looked at Sun Wukong very seriously and spoke to him. There is one thing I want you to think about. We may not be able to successfully enter Pandora this time. Because their defense system, including the barrier in front of them, is not something Seiki Kusuo can solve. And when Seiki Kusuo said this to Sun Wukong, the heavy look on his face was something Sun Wukong could not accept. Sun Wukong suddenly shook his head and looked at Seiki Kusuo with a stubborn face. No, you should know how to solve this matter. I believe you. Sun Wukong patted Seiki Kusuo's shoulder while speaking. He looked serious and didn't seem to be joking. It's a pity that Seiki Kusuo still sighed. He knew that he wanted to avenge Chi-Chi, but it was too early to take revenge at this moment. They didn't even know how to break through the level in front of them. How could they go in and help Chi-Chi solve this matter? Just by moving your toes and thinking about it, you know that this idea is too whimsical. Seiki Kusuo's face showed some helplessness, but at this time, the captain had not yet made a fake pass. He planned to wait until he successfully passed the barrier before telling Seiki Kusuo about this. But he didn't expect that the security system in front of him would suddenly start automatically, and the strong artillery fire covered the sky above the entire Pandora planet. Everyone was shocked, even the captain. Seeing those gun holes pointed at him, the captain's face turned pale. Zero, please give me flowers. After thinking about it, the captain hurriedly drove the captain left here with a special spaceship. It is impossible to be bombarded here. The captain left suddenly, causing dissatisfaction in Sun Wukong. Sun Wukong frowned and said in confusion. What are you doing? We haven't entered here yet. Sun Wukong gritted his teeth while speaking, his face full of anger. When the captain heard what Sun Wukong said, he smiled a little embarrassedly and said, Zero. I don't know why, the security system inside suddenly started, and those artillery fires covered everything. If we don't leave, we may die. The seriousness on the captain's face was not fake, but Sun Wukong frowned when he heard it. His face became a little ugly, and Seiki Kusuo walked quickly, and he didn't understand how the security system above could be triggered. But now it has been triggered, they have no choice but to accept this matter. Under desperation, Seiki Kusuo and Chi-Chi and others can only discuss other solutions. Seiki Kusuo had a bit of helplessness on his face, and Sun Wukong spoke without hesitation at this moment. Work. Chapter 648. Why don't we go now and see if we can defeat the barrier through our attack? If the barrier cannot be defeated, at least we can attract the mysterious doctor out. Thinking of this, Sun Wukong's face showed a bit of smile. Seiki Kusuo saw Sun Wukong's look and nodded immediately without refusing. They left the spaceship just like that. The captain saw that they finally left, and for a moment he wiped the cold sweat from his forehead. He didn't know what these guys would continue to do if they stayed here. When Sun Wukong got angry, it was not ordinary people who could tolerate his temper. The captain also saw through his face, so he wanted them to leave. After they left, the captain decisively took the special spaceship away. But he didn't dare to go far, because he knew that Seiki Kusuo would call him back anytime and anywhere. At this moment, the captain was able to enjoy a moment of comfort, so he naturally enjoyed it. However, at this moment, Seiki Kusuo brought Sun Wukong and hurried to the sky above Pandora. Because of the barrier, they could not enter smoothly. At this point, Seiki Kusuo spoke to Sun Wukong without hesitation. Think of other ways to get in here. Launch a fierce attack. While Seiki Kusuo said, he commanded the two of them. The two nodded and decisively launched an attack on the barrier. Seeing them like that, Seiki Kusuo nodded with satisfaction, and he also launched a fierce attack. It's a pity that what they are doing now doesn't seem to have much effect. And here, it was precisely because of their attack that Doctor Who noticed it. Without thinking, Doctor Who sent out robots from the inside of his planet. The robots flew in the sky one after another. Seeing a dense mass of things coming, Seiki Kusuo looked at Chi-Chi and suddenly spoke. Is this barrier going to be opened soon? Chi-Chi just shook her head when she heard what Seiki Kusuo said. She didn't know. But now Chi-Chi looked at the densely packed things in front of her and felt extremely puzzled. He suddenly spoke. What is this thing? Sun Wukong heard Chi-Chi's question and looked up. He found that these were all robots Zero. They seemed to have awakened Doctor Who. Sun Wukong looked at Chi-Chi anxiously. Doctor Who is about to come out. Hurry up and think of a way to deal with it. Sun Wukong laughed as he spoke. He already knew how to deal with Doctor Who next, including the bunch of robots he had researched. He would also try every possible way to destroy them. Only in this way could his revenge plan reach the top. Seiki Kusuo saw Sun Wukong's look and nodded immediately. He couldn't help but pat Sun Wukong on the shoulder and said, when they come over, I'll give you this chance. The seriousness on Seiki Kusuo's face was not fake. Sun Wukong heard that he had no objection. While nodding, he was also welcoming the appearance of the mysterious doctor. At this moment, Sun Wukong was responsible for dealing with those super robots. Those robots were like flies. Once they were set their sights on them, they would pester them until their bodies were completely destroyed. Chapter 649. Under helplessness, Sun Wukong also felt a headache, and Seiki Kusuo was also helping him. But the help at this moment would not play a big role. All this still needed to rely on his own ability. Considering this, Seiki Kusuo looked at Sun Wukong with a bit of weirdness in his eyes. Hurry up. Seiki Kusuo clenched his fist and kept urging Sun Wukong. Sun Wukong nodded. Sun Wukong looked at Chi-Chi beside him. Chi-Chi fought side by side with him because Seiki Kusuo had helped him deal with some robots. So now Sun Wukong doesn't have so much trouble to deal with it. He couldn't help laughing, because he was looking forward to meeting Doctor Who soon. 06. While he was happy, Sun Wukong showed a proud look on his face. Seeing his look, Mu Kusuo spoke calmly. Don't be complacent now, but find a way to solve them. Only after solving these troubles can we go in and pay Doctor Who. What Mu Kusuo said was the truth. Chi-Chi also nodded beside him, looking at Sun Wukong, and hurriedly calmed down his excitement. Sun Wukong nodded and soon calmed down. Mu Kusuo saw him solve those super robots, while he himself accumulated fairy chakra. He used a very powerful fairy technique, but unfortunately, when he was using it, there were only countless winds sweeping towards him. Looking at this scene, everyone frowned, curious, and couldn't understand what Mu Kusuo was doing. But Mu Kusuo looked at them with a casual look on his face. He knew that he was about to break the barrier of Pandora, and Doctor Who would have nowhere to hide. He had no other choice but to die. But at this moment, Doctor Who stayed in the planet, quietly watching their operation, and saw Seiki Kusuo standing on the barrier. Doctor Who couldn't help but smile. He thought in his heart that Seiki Kusuo was not his opponent, and it would be difficult for him to break the barrier no matter what. He had spent a lot of effort to build this barrier, and now it was not that easy for Seiki Kusuo to break it easily. When thinking about this, Doctor Who's face also showed pride. And Seiki Kusuo looked at them calmly and said, "Everyone will see Doctor Who soon, believe me." When Seiki Kusuo said this, Chi-Chi nodded hurriedly, and even Sun Wukong did the same. Their hatred for Doctor Who reached an extremely high level. So at this moment, they couldn't bear it at all. One more minute was torture for them. Thinking of this, Seiki Kusuo's face also showed some helplessness. The magic in front of him still needs a long time to condense, otherwise it will not be able to bring a fatal blow to the barrier. Fortunately, Seiki Kusuo's magic finally condensed. When his magic attacked the barrier finally collapsed. Seiki Kusuo's face was full of excitement. He couldn't help but raise his eyebrows and looked at Sun Wukong beside him and said anxiously, "Hurry up, let's get rid of him quickly." Seiki Kusuo said while urging Sun Wukong, and then helped him deal with the robots in front of him. Seiki Kusuo's actions were fast enough, so Sun Wukong saw the robots disappear at this moment. He also showed excitement on his face. Chapter 650. At this time, Seiki Kusuo decisively used the Flying Thunder God technique and instantly came to the side of the mysterious doctor. The moment he broke the barrier was so fast that the mysterious doctor didn't react at all. In his cognition, the barrier was the point he was most proud of, but now he broke it in one go, which was unimaginable. Doctor Who clenched his fists, with a complicated expression on his face. Seeing Doctor Who's expression, Seiki Kusuo immediately shook his head. "Go to hell, people like you don't deserve to live anymore." Seiki Kusuo walked into the laboratory step by step. The laboratory looked large, and every instrument in it was sophisticated. In addition to this, Seiki Kusuo also saw some experiments in operation in the laboratory. He looked at Doctor Who and suddenly said something sarcastic. "Why do you still find a way to do such a bad thing at this moment?" Mu Kusuo's face was full of contempt. Doctor Who fell into silence when he heard his words. Perhaps because Chimu Kusuo came too suddenly, he had not reacted at this moment, and was even caught off guard by Chimu Kusuo. But when Chimu Kusuo saw his look, he said very calmly, "I'm saying, why don't you die now? Still looking at me here, is it so good?" Chimu Kusuo said while touching his face. His smug look finally brought Doctor Who back to his senses. Doctor Who gritted his teeth in anger and looked at Chimu Kusuo for a long time without saying a word. But soon, he hurriedly asked the super soldiers to besiege Chimu Kusuo, because the number of super soldiers was too many, even if Sun Wukong and the others came. But Chimu Kusuo couldn't help Sun Wukong to avenge, let alone stop Doctor Who. Chimu Kusuo's face showed some unfortunately, there were too many super soldiers. After being entangled by them, it was difficult for Seiki Kusuo to get away. After trying his best, Seiki Kusuo finally solved the group in front of him, but he didn't expect that there would be another group of super soldiers. These super soldiers could not pose any threat to Seiki Kusuo, but Seiki Kusuo was trapped by their number. Under desperation, Seiki Kusuo could only solve the super soldiers in front of him. Looking at Doctor Who, Seiki Kusuo spoke without hesitation. Don't be arrogant anymore. People like you are not qualified to get all this. Seiki Kusuo was telling the truth. Doctor Who heard it and raised his eyebrows calmly. After I solve these super soldiers, I will come to solve you now. Seiki Kusuo. As soon as the words came out, Doctor Who laughed, nodded continuously, and looked at Seiki Kusuo with great pride. Okay, Qian Zhao, then just do it, and see if you have the strength. When he said this, Seiki Kusuo smiled very calmly. But what Seiki Kusuo didn't expect was that the number of these super soldiers seemed to be endless, and they piled up densely. Seiki Kusuo almost suspected that he was hallucinating. Otherwise, how could there be so many super soldiers? Seiki Kusuo was troubled by this.